Hello, and welcome to the last video in this lesson. In this video, we're going to cover sequences and transactions. A sequence is a set of integers, such as 1, 2, 3, that are generated in order on a specific demand. We already saw an example of sequences when we set our IDs to auto-increment in our tables. They go up by 1 automatically. That is, in fact, the most common type of sequence. A transaction is a set of queries that must all be completed before the action becomes permanent. One of the things that transactions is necessary for are things like auto-incrementing. The correct ID has to be determined, and then the insert has to happen, and we need to make sure that nothing happens in between, and so we can use a transaction. Transactions begin with start transaction command and end with commit if the transaction was successful, or roll back if not. It will undo everything that happened within the transaction. Let's see an example. Here we have our name table. Now, if we look at the actual table itself, we can see where we set the auto increment, and that's where we've been doing our sequence. But if we remove this and wanted to do it ourselves, I'm going to click apply. Now it's no longer going to auto increment. Instead, we're going to have to do it manually, and we'll do that with a transaction because we don't want to find out the correct ID to use and then have the ID change because some other insert happened between them. So we're going to go up here and start our transaction. Now, in a transaction, it's important that everything happens individually. So we're going to add a semicolon to the end, and that says run this and then do the next thing. Now we'll do our select. We'll select ID from name. And we don't need a where because we want the max ID. We'll just put max on this ID. Now we're going to have to do one other thing as well, because we need to use this ID in our next statement. We're going to have to assign it to a variable. We'll do that by saying at a colon equals, and that'll allow us to use at a later on in the sequence. So we'll put a semicolon on this one, and now we'll run our insert. Insert into name set ID equal to at a plus 1, because remember, we want to auto increment. We already have one max value. Then we'll set first name equal to Oliver and last name equal to Tanel. And then we'll commit this transaction. So if I run this, and then we go back and look at our our name table, we've inserted Oliver Tanel, and we've auto-incremented the ID by using our transaction. Now, if I were to go back and try to run this again, but instead of committing, I used rollback, you're going to see that it did not insert a new value. That's because the rollback canceled everything that happened before it. It didn't make it permanent. This isn't too common when having to do things interactively like we're doing. However, if you're doing a whole lot of transactions in code, you may need to check that each one is successful before determining whether you want to commit or roll back. And that completes our lesson on MySQL and queries. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been brought to you by CreativeOnlineSchool.com.